Hi there, everyone. Welcome back. This is Juliana, and I have a very special guest with us today. It is February 24th. It is, sorry, Friday, April 24th. Dyslexic Brian, looking at the calendar. And anyway, so today we're discussing, living between worlds, a neurodivergent conversation on being neurodivergent and navigating social life in real time. And with the intention of helping adults understand why social situations feel like internally in real time and move from shame to strategy. This conversation is for you. Um, if you're looking to learn more about what social situations actually feel like in real time from the perspective of an adult with ADHD who is also living between the foot of ADHD and also on the spectrum. In our For our guest today, we have Jonathan Rhodes. Jonathan was born and raised in Bethesda, Maryland. He attended Walt Whitman High School, majored in sociology at Gettysburg College, and earned his Master of Social Work from the Catholic University of America. He began working with autistic children and children with ADHD in child welfare before opening his own practice. He now specializes in supporting autistic and ADHD adults and has given numerous talks and written published articles on neurodivergent life. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Um, let's dive on into things. Something that just for starting off with, so I have like seven major points for us to cover today.
hmm
Key points. Something I wanted to start off with first is your identity and evolution. According to ChatGPT, that's the headliner. But like whatever of these questions make the most sense to you, but how has your understanding of being on this spectrum evolved as you've gotten older? And I'm sorry that it's phrased that right way, but what has your understanding evolved as someone who's neurodivergent as you've gotten older?
I think it's provided a lot of context, first and foremost. A lot of, oh, okay, that's why I did what I did, or that's how I felt when this situation happened, kind of things. It's kind of provided me a lot of opportunities to have more self-compassion for myself and to not beat myself up for when I've made social faux pas or said the wrong thing or reacted super strongly emotionally when something happened. It's allowed me to give myself a lot more grace, I think. And I think also that it has just helped me really connect more to the people I work with because of hopefully shared experiences.
Absolutely. And that also is why I love coaching so much, but sharing those experiences of not
Mhm.
feeling so alone. And
Yeah.
I'm I'm sure you get a really great feeling when you connect with some your clients or a potential client that really resonates with you and your story or where you're coming from. Um, does that make you feel good?
Yeah, it does. I mean, also too, I want to add that, it's great when I can connect with somebody that I'm not even working with, just like a
Mhm.
person who shares my same special interest. It feels really great to have that kind of synergistic feeling of being in a flow state where basically it's like you can just feel great, feel good, and know that this person knows exactly what you're talking about. They can respond in kind. They can just take it as it comes, and they don't mind you going on and on about it. It goes both ways, of course, but it's just really great to finally be able to connect with somebody on a level that's not just like, hey, how's it going? Superficial small talk.
Absolutely. And that connection really makes us feel like we belong and have a sense and
hmm
place in the world. Um, how would you describe your identity today as someone with who is identifies as neurodivergent?
I describe myself as that as neurodivergent. I, you know that I'm on the spectrum. I have Asperger's and I also have ADHD. So I just kind of accept myself as being under the blanket of neurodivergence. And just I find it easier to tell people I'm neurodivergent out front, and then if they want more information and they ask, then I'm happy to give them more details. But
Mhm.
I think at this point that's where I'm comfortable with, and I've got no problems being that way.
And yeah, feeling comfortable in our skin and how our brain operates definitely in coming from a space of strengths and seeing ourselves
Mhm.
as, things that we can do and seeing ourselves as whole is such a game changer, especially for me through the years as well.
Yep.
And something you're really also well aware of is, how the DSM-5 changed, the terminology from autism to
Mhm.
ADHD. What was that, like 2022 we were saying?
Yeah, when I found out, actually, it was in 2023 when I got diagnosed. So I was late diagnosis. Um, I don't think I found it too awfully difficult. I mean, I still refer to myself as having Asperger's, just because I find it easier to explain to people that way as opposed to saying, oh, I have high functioning autism. And people are like, wait, you don't look like you have autism, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
misinformation. There's a lot of stereotype. There's a lot of, you know, uh, people thinking that autism looks a certain way when really it's like lots of people can present differently with autism as they are on the spectrum. And sometimes, even people with Asperger's may not necessarily present initially as having that. But I guess that's all to say that I find it just easier to still use the old diagnosis when I'm referring to myself. And that's just me, my personal preference. I'm not saying that for anybody else. But yeah, so I just want to make that part clear. Hopefully I answered that question too. Sometimes it get a bit challenging for me to respond to what I think people want to hear.
If anything, it's the way I'm asking it, so I'm sorry if I asked it wrong.
No, no worries.
No, there was no like set in stone questions. I feel like I'm modifying it as we go.
Okay.
But and that's like another really special part of like ADHD coaching, especially for me, is, meeting our clients where we're at. Obviously, you're not my client, but just like
Mhm.
meeting people where we're at and just being present. So I appreciate you meeting me the halfway to that bridging point.
Yep.
So moving along here, there's something I'm excited to talk about each of these parts only.
Mhm.
But why I'm so excited about this recording is because I feel like I it is so hard to like it's not saying that people don't believe me of what my like real time someone with who's neurodivergent feels like and experience in real time, but it feels really nice to just have an open conversation with another
Mhm.
mature adult, and I thank you for being so vulnerable.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
bridging the gap in right where we're right now is the internal experience in real time of our day-to-day life, and something that I that came up I've been coaching now for 4 years, and that comes up for me occasionally in consultation calls is people will ask me, "Hey, what's my ADHD and what's my actual real life brain?" I'm sorry, brain. I just said plain. Um,
Mhm.
but essentially, that just bridging like the connection between my next question is so, describing what it feels like to have like feeling like you have two brains, and where does that feel like in a live conversation?
Well, so that's yeah, no, that can be quite challenging because it's like so the way I kind of try to view it and try to explain to other people for how I experience myself is my non-ADHD brain, the brain that wants to be organized, the brain that wants to be focused, that has plan clearly laid out, that wants to go according to that plan, is I view it like it's a control room, if you will. We'll say like, I don't know, like a control room at a power plant where I have all these different jobs that need to be done in terms of focus, in terms of organization, in terms of verbal expression, nonverbal expression, reception, translation for what people are saying, so I can understand it and then give it back to them. So everybody has their jobs in this control room. When ADHD comes in, it's like somebody's let loose a clown in that control room, and he's going, yeah, ha, 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 as he's like going around hitting all these different buttons, pushing people out of the way, messing up the control room. And that can trigger for me, well, like in the power plant situation, so that would trigger a electric meltdown. For me, that kind of contributes to a situation meltdown for me, where it's like I start to get more confused, I start to stop a lot more, I start to, get forgetful, get more anxious. And it doesn't help that I'm seeing the clown in my mind at the same time. My ADHD clown set fire to all the plans and everything in the organization that's going on. And then it's just like, and I kind of have to, really, like, at that point, I kind of start to shut down. Hopefully that says something. But yeah.
Uh, was something that you really said that stuck out to me is your ADHD clown. How long have you been saying that to
I,
yourself, or has
I I've been saying that for a while, actually, just mostly to myself, and sometimes I express it to other people, but mostly I kind of use it for myself as a way to kind of, when I start to get like, and I use sounds a lot when I don't know the right verbal word to use. But when I get in that way, it's like, okay, hey, the clown's loose. I need to I need to dial back. I need to retreat and reorganize. And sometimes I don't have that option if I'm like dealing with somebody like in a session or in a conversation.
I really like that you something I say about coaching for me and working with clients and learning these skills is understand like being able to pause to in the moment to assess what's happening in real time. And it sounds like that's exactly what you do when you acknowledge the clown is out. It's,
Hmm.
acknowledging, I need to take a moment to debrief and check in with like where I'm at in the moment, it sounds like.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really impressive. And good for you that you can have that mind muscle connection. It definitely, something clients always ask me is, how long does it take to be able to do that?
I think it's ongoing, honestly. It's like, it's developing whether we know it or not. And also through conscious work as well. But it's almost like, having that connection is a survival skill for neurodivergent people. At least I believe so. And, we're always working on our survival skills to basically be able to, well, survive, whether it's a social situation, a work situation, any kind of daily things. Like, we're trying to find ways to get through it. And yeah, so that's just my thoughts on it.
No, I so agree. And so in your opinion, what is happening internally that others don't see when you're having these conversations, or when either you're having a conversation or when the clown is let loose, whatever you sounds right.
Um, so what's happening internally is, it's like the executive. So it's like the executive, the person that I should have mentioned that earlier on, like there's an executive that's in charge of the control room and everything, and he's like, I use that to just represent the executive functioning piece. But it's like he can't do that job when the clown is loose, so he's chasing the clown around, trying to figure that out and get the clown under control. So basically, things can get reorganized and start back up again. So while that's going on inside, it's also like I am experiencing having nightmare fuel dumped on the fire in that situation. Nightmare fuel being like I'm still like kind of involved in this social conversation, and I don't know what to do because I'm so distracted by managing trying to manage the clown, that my fears about how I'm going to be interpreted by others or seen by others, causes my anxiety to go through the roof, if that makes sense. So it's like a self-perpetuating doom loop. It just keeps kind of going and going and going. And outwardly, I have to be, that's when I'm making less eye contact. That's when I'm looking more around. I'm fidgeting more. I am maybe stuttering over my words. I'm taking longer pauses between responses, or I'm laughing nervously, or any of those kinds of things. That's basically, it's like my brain in emergency mode is like, okay, do this, do this, do this, have this response for this, have this response for this, just like in the moment to kind of be, to be like band-aids while I'm trying to get things under control, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Um, so would you say that there is a delay in between what you think and what you say?
I think so, yes, especially when I'm more anxious and I don't know what to do or like to talk about, especially if it's like somebody that I know doesn't have the same interest as me or doesn't have a we don't have a rapport or connection. It's more, I have to be kind of like pick and choose and go very slowly to come up with something. And a lot of times I will try to end those interactions quickly so I can go find something so I can either, take time to shut down and recalibrate or find somebody else to talk to instead. Or just get out of the situation in general, just, like for permanently exit the situation, like if it's like a party or a bunch of people getting together or what have you, or even interacting with somebody like in a service setting, like a grocery store or whatnot. Um, Clients is a bit different because I don't have that luxury to be able to just be like, all right, we're done. See ya. I can't just do that. So there I have to be a lot more, it's a lot more exhausting. I'll say it's a lot more exhausting to stay with it and to try to come up with things to say and try to keep things going and feeling that intense pressure to be able to perform socially. I guess the last thing I'll say on that is like, there's always people say working with people in therapy that they don't work harder than your clients, but a lot of times I feel like I do because I feel a pressure to not make them feel uncomfortable because if they're, and not feed off of my discomfort. So I feel like I kind of have to shove mine down and then still be able to perform, which is very difficult to do those two things when you've got a maniacal clown running around and ruining your plans and everything internally.
I like this clown is becoming more and more real life to me.
Yep.
Um, and so what does social cognitive load feel like?
Social cognitive load. That's so funny. I don't use jargon that much, so can you just elaborate on that one just a little bit when you say social cognitive load?
Sure, like I'm sorry that I use it this
I'm
way,
not on stories.
but so essentially, like when I'm thinking, it's like to me, it's coming up two ways. It's either I'm trying to like be like I'm in this social environment,
Mhm.
social interaction, social situation. Things are going on, and either I want to say something, but I'm waiting my turn to talk, or
Mhm.
like, or you can even relate to the sense of the cognitive load of trying to be present social when you're social.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that can be very challenging because a lot of times I experience social anxiety in terms of talking. So I'll come across as being like, oh, very sociable sometimes, and be like, oh, you're perfectly sociable, but no, inside I'm like so tense that it's like I could crack nuts like a nutcracker.
Mhm.
Just so I find talking to help keep things going when I'm anxious like that. At the same time, though, it's causing me to burn out because there's just so much trying to come up with thinking about what to say and how to keep talking so I just don't stay anxious. So again, it's another one of those doom loops. Um, and it's a lot harder for me to engage with people that I don't have a shared interest in. Um, However, on the flip side, in a social situation where I do have a shared interest, it's very difficult for me to not interrupt or to
Mm.
not, cut somebody off and to be aware, hey, you know that they have something to share and what they have to say is important, so you need to listen so you can
Mhm.
respond appropriately. But it's just like for that one, I feel like it's like kind of like sprinters at the start line in a race where they're all like hyped up, they're ready, they're just waiting for the little like sound to go off, bing, and then they run. And it's like same thing for me. Is like I'm just very internally hyped up. There's energy building and building and building, and I just want to share so much what I want to, but I have to regulate and
Mhm.
be able to wait. So a lot of times I'll miss out on what people are saying because I'm so focused on what I want to say and just keeping that energy from exploding outwards. And then people, because sometimes, I mean, I've had to explain to people because like, wow, you talk fast. I'm like, well, I have a lot to say, but also too, the way my brain is working right now, um, it is hard for me to pick and choose which things to share. What like, pick one detail that's important. So I'm going to say all of it. But I also
Mm.
don't want to come across though as being rude by dominating the discussion. So I feel that pressure. And then I'll go blah, 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 like really, really fast um to get out what I want to say. So I mean, it's always like there's all the inner workings and stuff that's going on, but there's always that social pressure to behave and conform like a neuronormative that just adds to further burnout energy and expenditure, for lack of better words.
I feel like I'm really talking to someone who understands me, and I'm thank you so much again for being here.
Mhm.
So it's just some things I just want to acknowledge that you said, but like maybe we'll come on here and talk about it another time, just because I have
Sure.
other things for us to identify. But I just loved how you shared like the cognitive load element, and you said so many valuable things to me that I'm like dipping my toes into as figuring out my values and strengths.
Hmm.
And you mentioned like sharing a special interest, a shared interest with someone, and me sitting here thinking about that's right. Why am I awkward in some adult interactions, whether it's in a network, a work setting with coworkers or family? And what you said was finding that special interest.
Hmm.
And then, so that makes me think of, oh, that's right. Don't lose track of that. I've been
Yeah.
in more social interactions recently, in person. So I don't know, this is a nice thing to hear. Something else I love that you said was, when you do interact with this shared special interest or interest with someone, to not interrupt. So learning that skill of
Hmm.
pausing. That's something I master, and then I sometimes have to get back to that mastery skill.
Yep.
And you also mentioned, picking one or one detail to share, or whatnot when you are, in a social group where you said like picking one thing versus sharing everything. That really related to me because, my mom's probably might watch this recording, but there's been times my mom says, "Don't dominate the conversation." And I'm just like, I'm
Hmm.
grateful I can even talk sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I know.
So
I same for me.
yeah, so sometimes I take it as a win that like, oh my gosh, I have thoughts and feelings, I'm able to socialize, but there is a difference between um are you talking too much, having that reciprocal conversation. So
Hmm.
thanks for letting me even point that out.
Yep.
Yeah. So something else was so the next thing is, being neurodivergent, and where do different diagnoses overlap.
Hmm.
Because that's why something I always like to say is that's why call it on the spectrum. And this is apart from this recording topic agenda, but essentially it's so complex that it is anywhere from those executive function challenges
Hmm.
to social skills to adulting to remastering skills. So I'm not sure. Just wanted to say I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. So that being said, we kind of already talked about like where does your neurodiversity overlap, and where they conflict. So my question is, where does impulsivity ever clash with processing time?
Impulsivity. Oh, yes. Yes, it does. because again, it goes back to that anxiety that I feel, or that stress, or that just like unpleasant feeling of being in a situation that I have to be in and not necessarily wanting to. Um, because it's like, so I guess I'll just diverge for a bit. It's like, they were just real quickly to say, when it comes to social situations, I have energy in the tank that I feel like, is my social energy. And I only have so much that I can use across the course of a day. So I really try to manage my interactions to put that energy towards the ones I want to, and the ones I don't, and not the ones I don't want to. So it's like, basically it comes across to others as rude sometimes, as like, no, I don't want to speak to you if I don't have to. And I also
Hmm.
don't like networking events, because it's like, the way I see it is like, well, what are we talking about? We're talking about what you do and what I do. Is like, okay, but beyond that, it's like, I am way more uncomfortable talking to you about something I have no idea what I'm talking about than I am, just being silent. So I'm going to avoid or be very terse and abrupt in those interactions. I need to conserve that energy for things that I want to, engage with.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. But
Yeah.
anyway, so back on topic. But yeah, no, it does contribute to impulsivity, because a lot of times I'll try to be, I just want to end the interaction, or I don't know what to say. So I was like,
Mhm.
in order to manage the anxiety around that, I'll just say something. And it may not be the most appropriate, or it may not be the most thought out. It's hard to read. A lot of times I find it's really hard to read what another person's going to react like, or how they do react to something I've already
Mhm.
said. So I find that it can be difficult for me to come up with a response to whatever they come back with. But yeah, impulsivity does get in the way a good amount, and I have to oftentimes backpedal and be like, say something else to kind of uh, cover that up, if that makes sense.
Mhm. It's funny that, like, especially for me, that in certain situations, I like impulsivity. For me,
Mhm.
impulsivity is more that responding quick to social things.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that am able to tame the impulse in other areas, but
Hmm.
thing I do wish is that difficult not only to come up with the response, but yeah. So we were mentioning impulsivity. Sorry, I was writing
Oh
my
yeah, yeah.
sorry. And then does rejection sensitivity amplify misunderstandings?
I think so, yes. It definitely does. It certainly increases in discouragement and the, why bother mentality. Because it's like, how do I describe it? Okay, as a neurodivergent person living in a neuronormative world, we don't always know where or when or how we're going to find our people, the ones that get us, the ones that we get.
Hmm.
And we try across the board with anybody pretty much, to see if there are people or not. But rejection comes along and it's like, no, you failed, sorry. And doesn't feel good for wanting to try again, because it's like you put yourself out there, you used social energy reserves to try to make a connection, and for whatever reason it doesn't work. And it's like, well, it doesn't feel good to be rejected. As like, so why am I going to bother again next time? I'm going to be a lot less likely to try again if I'm in a situation that hasn't gone well. But then, of course, I get easily discouraged. So that's just me. Um, but that's how I'd answer that. Hopefully, that answers the question. Um,
Absolutely. And rejection sensitivity
yep.
is not for the weak, as I like to say. That was something that also took me years to, I guess, cope, but also understand.
Hmm.
So another fun, experience question, but does hyperfocus affect conversations?
Yes, it can. I find that hyperfocus can affect conversations because it's harder for me to pivot and harder for me to come up with a plan B in terms of what to talk about or how to respond to a change in conversation. It's especially so when I say that, because hyperfocus, I was like, all right, I'm here engaging with you on this topic for this purpose right now. And if that changes, well, I'm not very flexible with that because it's like I got to suddenly pivot, like I said, and then figure out how to handle this new change in the conversation. So hyperfocus does contribute to a certain amount of rigidity and inflexibility for me. It's like, I guess the best way I could describe it is like a stick shift. I know they don't get used much anymore, but it's like a stick shift that in a car that is very um stuck, very slow, and it's hard to shift gears.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was just talking about stick shift the other day because my dad made force my sisters and I to learn stick shift
Mhm.
manual in case we had to drive our friends to the emergency room when I was 16.
Sure.
But anyway, so sorry that that's what came up for me. But yeah,
I
the
know.
shifting and that and conversation and
Mhm.
conversations are so hard to begin with. I
Yeah.
I'm curious, I forget the statistics on like how many conversations we have a day. So let's just say if I had 10 conversations a day and I shifted hyperfocus one time, I definitely consider that a win, but I definitely don't want to do it all the time.
Right. Yeah. No, it takes a lot more effort for me to do that and a lot more uh time afterwards for I guess what I call some, masochistic thinking about my social choices in that situation, whether I made the right choice, whether I handled it well, whether I didn't handle it well, how they must be thinking about me. Yeah, so there's a lot of self-evaluation that's not exactly how do I say done with, kind, proactive, hey, you did just fine, it's okay kind of mentality. It's more of a critical self-introspection.
I like how you the critical self-introspection. It's definitely a key social skills term.
Yep.
So we were now the next thing is masking and authenticity. Do you mask in adult social settings?
I do. I definitely do. It's like if I'm comfortable with somebody, they'll know it. I'll know it also because I can speak a lot more freely or just just I feel a lot less weight carried on me. Um, a lot less just energy being used to present a facade, you know, a face to the crowd, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, I find that masking is unfortunately necessary sometimes, especially in the form of what's called in sociology emotional labor,
Mhm.
where you have to act one way, but you're feeling something completely different or thinking something completely different. Um, it's hard for me to do that because I feel like it's disingenuous, but at the same time, it's a necessary skill because it's like a lot of times you're dealing with people that you don't really care what they think about what they're talking about. And I'm not saying this applies to clients. I'm just saying in general, it's like we don't want to engage with them or any number of other things, or it's just like, but we have to, pretend or act a certain way. So there's a lot of emotional labor that goes on.
Yeah,
That
emotional labor. Keep going.
oh no, that's right. There's a lot of emotional labor that goes on in a lot of interactions, but the ones where I actually want to be engaged with, or the ones that are easier, then that's I can just be real and I don't have to do that.
Absolutely. And that those are the conversation. I want to be in real conversations that I want.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's just for starters. Um, and how do you know when you are masking versus when you're being authentic?
Fatigue. I get a lot more tired, a lot faster, emotionally and even physically. Um, and also I'll feel pain. I have fatigue, social fatigue is like that, but I experience fatigue as physical pain. And if I'm feeling physical pain, then that lets me know I am more socially fatigued, and I need to either step out or take a pause or go switch to something else, like another person, if it's a gathering. But yeah,
And what does long-term masking cost emotionally?
a lot of exhaustion, a lot of exhaustion, a lot of self, at least for me, a lot of self-doubt. Like, did I do it okay job of masking, or did I let things loose? Did I, what did people think about how I handled the situation? A lot of mind reading, a lot of, and I say mind reading, like being like trying to guess what other people are thinking, what they're feeling, but it just costs a lot of emotional and psychological energy and physical energy. And I need significant amounts of time afterwards to do what I call detox, where I just kind of need to rebuild my energy levels back up and get rest.
And so how that leads to my next question, but
Mhm.
how do you balance adapting socially without losing yourself?
Uh, well, I've had to work a lot on the idea of that, you don't need to be friends with everybody. You don't need to be able to be pals with everyone and have everyone like you. I mean, don't be a jerk, but it's like, it's okay to have a couple of friends that are really strong that you cultivate, kind of like a garden, if you will, as opposed to trying to, plant like fields of seeds and trying to manage the whole thing. But like a smaller garden is more manageable than like a giant farm. So I try to balance things out by focusing on a couple of people, quality over quantity, if you will, and cultivating those ones in like I call my social garden as opposed to just, yeah, tons of people.
Well, I is did you coin my social garden or is that a sociala?
No, that's something I came up with for myself a while ago.
I have to tell you this recording is golden nuggets. You say I'm so happy you're on here. But I really resonated with your saying, cultivating your social garden because I just to cut the story short, I just can't deal with drama
Oh yeah. Oof.
like from the start to finish. So I used to like before understanding, I'm a sensitive person, understanding rejection sensitivity. I view rejection sensitivity as just being a like sensitive person, but essentially like what went into the before aftermath of dealing with criticism or
Mhm.
sensitivity just took it all out of me. So I rather have no friends than a farm of friends like you're saying. So
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't mean to keep saying I just can't.
Oh, yeah.
So we're moving along here. So social
Mhm.
friction points. I hope you don't mind to keep
Oh no,
going.
yeah, no worries.
So small talk and processing speed. Like so what's coming up for you when it small social friction points with small talk and processing speed?
So social friction points is, the internal machine breaking down or being, I guess, for lack of better words, rusty and not moving at a speed that can keep up with others. It's like the way I kind of view it is, with my social anxiety, especially how it's limiting, even though I speak fast, I'll speak a lot, but how it's limiting to actually me engaging with the person and genuinely listening to what they say and then responding, or knowing how to handle faux pas or stuff like that. It's a lot. It's like the way I call it is like, with my social anxiety and stuff like that, and just the challenges I face with like sometimes doing small talk and just idle chit chat is like bringing a knife to a gunfight where everybody else, has all prepared and everything like that, and knows what's going on and ready to go. And I'm just like, I can do it, but it's a lot more awkward and a lot slower for me. So yeah, that's how I kind of view is like bringing a knife to a gunfight socially.
I love that metaphor. It wasn't until I just turned 33. I feel
Mhm.
very old, even though I'm young on the, lifespan. I do feel old, but
Yeah.
talking about the small talk, it wasn't until I swear on it, I swear that it wasn't until like, this year, a month or two ago, like literally that short amount of time where I felt comfortable being silent and awkward encounter.
Yeah.
And it actually, I don't know what changed that just 2 months ago I was able to just be okay with it.
Hmm.
But That uncomfort silence drives me nuts.
Yeah, yeah, no, it doesn't. That's so it's a double-edged sword too, because it's like I don't like the silence. I don't like the discomfort that comes with it. So yeah, I try to keep it going, but at the same time, I like to have conversations and interactions with a purpose and with a goal and an outcome. So just talking about, oh, gee, like my 401k is going to mature or whatever, or I don't know if that even happens, but whatever, it's just like, ah, I can't express it verbally. It's like I can't do it, because there's no, it's like, what's the point? And we tie that back to the social energy and in the tank and how much I have to use, and that ties into, okay, well, I don't really want to have this interaction if I don't have to because I only have so much that I can put in emotionally, mentally, physically, and physically is like with the masking, you know. So yeah. Anyway, I was trying to tie it together.
How about being social friction points with being misunderstood?
Um, yeah, that's challenging. Also, it's like I find myself, speaking to kind of cover up again like a faux pas. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Or like, oh well, hey, thank you for telling me. Thank you for pointing that out. Even though it's like inside, I'm like, what did I do? But it just comes out as me being more anxious, more fast talking, more trying to recover, if you will, the situation so I don't get in trouble, or if I perceive I'm going to get in like social trouble.
And I definitely grew up in a, a traditional, I don't know if it's traditional is right, but my grandparents were very strict to my parents, so I grew up in they might not say strict, but a strict household. So yeah, feeling like you are messing up socially, living up to
Mhm.
those standards, coming back down to like our character strengths and what is
Yeah.
so speaking on social friction points, how about receiving feedback at work?
That can be challenging, just because it's like I'm very self-critical as it is. I've grown up being very self-critical and having a lot of criticism, from others for just like doing things that I didn't think were necessarily a big deal. So getting feedback can be difficult. It's not that I don't want feedback, it's just I have a very fragile sense of self and fragile sense of ability. So feedback threatens the fragility, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I'll come across as like, okay, gee, thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for the feedback. All right, no, okay, whatever. But inside, I'm really internalizing it and really, getting masochistic with the criticism, the self-criticism that I put myself under.
And I the criticism, is nothing to joke about. And so in those moments when you have, this criticism, what helps you get through that? What helps in the moment?
In the moment is to, of course, be polite, maintain the facade of, oh, thank you very much. I didn't think about that, or, thank you for the idea, and really trying to mask the desire to just blurt out and be like, oh my gosh, what the freak did I do? Or how did I
Mhm.
mess that up? Or, uh, like that kind of intense, visceral reaction that I would be having inside, trying to, cover that up with being, well, thank you, being polite and, um, straightforward. I might get a little bit short to people, but not like in a negative way, or not in terms of like being mean or rude or raising my voice, and just be like, thank you. And then I want to move on from there. So just
And that being said, receiving those, feedback and whatnot, how about managing social cues?
social cues can be difficult also, because I can sometimes infer the wrong thing, or I have a difficulty inferring what's going on.
Mhm.
So a lot of times a social cue will be difficult when I'm talking to somebody about my special interest, and it's time to talk for them to let them talk, or time to move on for something else. Or I might be social cues might be a bit challenging just in terms of how they respond to my own idiosyncrasies of conversation, or just my physical language and my physical way of being. So a lot of times I have difficulty with voice volume. That's a thing that I struggle with, is being too loud, especially when I get excited and
So
speaking up.
you get too loud?
Yeah, get
Oh
too
my
loud,
gosh, keep going.
get too loud, or also get very uh fast with my speech as well, because I want to get it out there and want to share it, and then it's like hard to tell when people have had enough and it's time to
Mm.
do something else. So yeah.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to say you get loud because that was actually something that came up for me. My mentor coach also was curious if, not saying they misdiagnosed me, but they missed part of me being on the spectrum with my diagnosis because I
Mhm.
actually am a very excited person. Of course, living life with ADHD, neurodivergent, you will have ups and downs and swings,
Mhm.
but I would also be excited and be loud, and it took me my whole life to understand that people don't like loud.
Yeah, yeah, no, it can be abrasive. I found that out. And yeah, so it's hard, but I find it hard to, find a go-between between too loud or too quiet, or
Right.
yeah, it's frustrating sometimes because it depends on what each person wants, and you got to figure that out. So
And the something for me is I've noticed that when I'm in certain situations, some environments and certain people, if I'm not loud, I feel like, and if I'm not loud in response to what they're saying to me, I feel that I'm not sharing my genuine feeling or
yeah,
emotions. So like that, then I feel like then I'm quiet because I don't want to be loud. And then they're
right.
like, oh, why? Then I get like ridiculed for being loud. So, anyways,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And then it's like also too, I have the big social cue thing I have issues with, or social behavior, faux pas behavior, is when I experience stress a lot of times, or I'm getting overwhelmed, or I've just lost my energy, I yawn. And of course, yawning when you're talking to somebody, yawning does a great job of saying to the person, gee, I really don't care what you have to say and you're boring me. When in my situation, it's anything but that.
uh,
I'm trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to stick with it and everything and stay engaged, but it's requiring so much effort that I'm
mhm.
fatiguing real fast, and then I start to yawn. So, or stressing real quickly. So yeah, so I start to yawn and come across as being disinterested when I'm not.
Yeah, that's it's so crazy that that's what's coming up. Like little do they know I'm trying so hard to pay attention.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so, speaking of, the social friction points, how about conflict escalation?
Conflict escalation. Um, that's been one I've had to struggle with a lot in terms of monitoring my reactions
Hmm.
when I get big feelings. Is they've done plenty of studies to show like people with ADHD, people who are on the spectrum, neurodivergent people in general, just have a lot more experience times where they have really, really big, strong reactions to something that may be out of proportion to a neuronormative, but are completely making sense to the neurodiverse person because it's genuinely what they're feeling. So there's that disconnect there that happens. And then also, too, a lot of times neurodivergent people will experience intense feelings in a situation a lot longer than somebody who's neuronormative will. And so the neuronormative person might get beyond the issue or whatever, but the neurodivergent person's still stuck on that, still experiencing it. That's been something for me where it's like, okay, well, I'm still feeling really angry about what happened 30 minutes ago, or I'm still really upset that you talked to me the way you did yesterday. How can you be being nice to me now or being act like nothing ever happened? That doesn't make sense. And
Mhm.
also, I'll still have the anger, I'll still have that feeling from a previous event, and then something else completely unrelated happens, and that adds more anger.
Mhm.
And I might unload both sets of anger, the one from the previous time and the one from the current incident. So I come across as being even more disproportionately emotional to what's going on.
I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I mean that happens a lot. So conflict can be difficult that way. And I've had to work a whole lot on, you know, managing and monitoring my emotional volume for different feelings and different reactions. And sometimes, I have to save it for when I'm by myself and I can just let it out alone because doing so with somebody else would be not pleasant, for lack of better words.
hmm It's crazy how much, the outward appearance we can still
Hmm.
be judged. Um, just the last one for social frictions, but how
Sure.
about maintaining adult friendships?
Um, that one, I mean, yeah, that gets exhausting because it's that effort, it's that social effort and that energy that has to go into maintaining it. But again, kind of tie that back to like what I was saying about my social garden quality over quantity. I would rather, sorry, there's a helicopter. Um, okay. I would rather put the energy into maintaining and cultivating a few people rather than a whole bunch. Of course, I'm saying that, like saying that now is like I have to convince myself because sometimes I'm not okay with having only a couple of friends. Sometimes I like to have a lot more. But, at the end of the day, I kind of just come back to reminding myself that really for what I can provide and what energy I have, that I'm comfortable with less is more,
Hmm
so maintaining friends can be challenging in terms of just like the effort that goes in. But I mean, once I kind of got them, it's like friends for life, if you will.
hmm
That I'll keep them around.
You'll keep them around.
Yeah.
I love your social garden and I like how you are intentional.
Hmm.
So shame to strategy framework. I had a few questions, but the only thing for this I want to ask is how do you regulate the nervous system for you?
My nervous system, how do I self-regulate?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mentioned before about doing detox, so kind of helps me go into isolation where it's just me and doing something like my special interest or like listening to music or resting or um things of that nature. But it's like usually I go and try to be away from people for as long as I can get. Of course, I have two kids, so I have to help parent and everything. So that makes it a little bit difficult sometimes to get away. But I try to take what time I can to be um, alone, not lonely, but alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of regulation. And another part of it is doing affirmations, especially for when I'm feeling in that masochistic um self-criticizing mind frame, um and also helps me to practice gratitudes so I can stay grounded and not get all, for lack of better words, like angry or frustrated or at the world situation or whatever's going on. And just kind of so that helps me too.
Absolutely. And so, moving towards, our practical takeaways. So, is there anything that you'd like to say, shout out to, for adults watching in particular?
Yeah, I would say if anything is suspend your disbelief. Anybody and everybody has different ways of coping, different ways of handling situations, different ways of thinking about how to handle situations and how to exist in a neuronormative world. So it may not make outright sense, it may be convoluted, but to the person who's thinking it and experiencing it, what they're doing does make sense. So, yeah, suspend your disbelief and take time to listen and learn from that person.
Absolutely. And what is one thing you wish you knew sooner?
Well, I wish I knew sooner what was going on, and everything. What there that there was actually a name for it, and that there was, other people shared experience for it, because it did feel isolating. It did feel like, oh wait, I'm just like some weirdo guy or some, quirky person with a lot of social faux pas, who does a lot of social faux pas, or has a lot of, awkward moments and things like that, or has had a lot of embarrassing experiences dealing with other people. So I wish I'd known earlier that it wasn't just me. Um, and it's been nice to connect with other people who've been in similar situations.
I so totally agree.
Mhm.
And so, can you tell us a little to our readers, our audience, of how they can stay in touch with you?
Sure. So I mean, as it hopefully it's come across in this episode, I'm more than happy to talk about what's going on with me, what I've experienced, and how I kind of, visualize the internal workings of being somebody like myself, um, and being somebody who has ADHD and is also on the spectrum. So, I mean, people are more than welcome to get in touch by visiting my website, and emailing me. I prefer that probably over phone conversation. So my email address um is rhoajo01@gmail.com. Um and it can be also found on my website, which is of course, yeah, I'm a great businessman. I'm forgetting my own website name off the top of my head. So um but yeah, no, you'll find it in my email address. So yeah, that's the best way.
Okay, so great. So, folks, thanks for being here. If you're looking for insights for someone with a neurodivergent brain, especially adults, parents trying to understand their kids and why they're operating the way they're operating, please feel free to reach out to Jonathan because, he's had this life experience bridging the gap and, learning these transitions, learning how your neurodivergence is showing up for you in real time and how building that workaround. So, having that connection with you. So of course, reach out to Jonathan with his email, his website. It will be in the message right here below. And yeah, any final words or anything, Jonathan?
Nope, just thank you very much for having me along, and I very much appreciate it. And I'm happy to, talk with anybody who wants to and share. Hopefully it can be helpful. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. That's perfect. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.